Before we begin, take a breath. This isn't just a podcast. It's a new way to think, speak, and live in English. Welcome to Coffluent Podcast, where words flow, confidence grows, and every sip brings you closer to fluency.
I absolutely love that opening. It really it sets the exact right tone for what we're getting into today.
Yeah, it's so necessary because today, well, we are totally tearing down the illusion of what we call school learning.
Right. The traditional system.
Exactly. What if I told you that the last, 500 hours you spent staring at English grammar rules actually made you worse at speaking?
It's a terrifying thought, but it's incredibly accurate.
It really is. Think about that for a second. If you're listening to this and you've ever felt that agonizing, paralyzing sensation of being stuck, translating words in your head while the person in front of you is just like staring at you, waiting for a response.
Oh, the worst feeling, the sweating, the panic.
Yeah, it's awful. Well, this deep dive is for you. We are unpacking a radical, and I mean radical, blueprint for achieving actual living English fluency in just 6 months.
And look, I know how that sounds to people.
Right. Sounds like a late-night infomercial, like, buy my 6-minute abs tape.
Exactly. But we aren't talking about a few vocabulary hacks or, memory tricks today. We are talking about a complete neurological rewiring of your brain.
Which is huge. So it's vital we establish the stakes right here at the start.
Yeah. To hit a 6-month goal, the very first thing that has to happen is a total destruction of the traditional language learning system.
You have to burn it down.
Literally burn it down. The method you grew up with, the rote memorization, the endless multiple choice grammar tests.
About the test.
And that anxiety of reading out loud in class, that system is fundamentally broken. It is actively holding your brain hostage.
Right, because it trains you to fear mistakes.
Exactly. We have to replace that entire paradigm with a high-intensity, emotion-driven methodology.
It's a complete mental reset. But I think before we can even map out what those 6 months look like, we have to deal with the psychological baggage.
The baggage is heavy, yeah.
It's so heavy. Because when people hear the word fluency, they just panic.
They do. They really do.
We need to strip away the intimidating myths about what our actual destination is. Because, honestly, the very definition of the word fluency has been hijacked.
It has. The misunderstanding of that single word is the biggest roadblock for most learners, period.
So how do people misunderstand it?
Well, people hear the word fluent, right? And their brain immediately conjures up the most unreachable standard.
Like what? Like a UN diplomat?
Yes, a diplomat giving this flawless, highly technical speech. Or they think of a native speaker who has lived in London for 40 years. They treat fluency as this mystical summit that requires like a genius-level IQ to conquer.
Right. But let's look at the actual linguistic root of the word fluent. Because when I realized this, it changed my entire perspective.
It's a game changer.
It is. The root of fluent is the exact same as the word fluid.
Fluid, like water.
Exactly. Fluid means flowing, moving smoothly. So think of a river. Water doesn't stop to overanalyze its path.
Oh, no, it just goes.
It doesn't freeze in place trying to calculate the perfect mathematical angle to move around a rock.
Right. It doesn't say, excuse me, am I using the past perfect continuous tense to get around this boulder?
Exactly. It just moves. It
Yeah.
flows effortlessly over the obstacles. And that is what true fluency is. It's the smooth, uninterrupted movement of words coming out of your mouth.
It's momentum.
Yes, momentum. It's the absolute opposite of stuttering or freezing with a terrifying, because your brain is locked in a panic loop.
And if we look at the physics of a river, following your analogy, the water doesn't have to be perfectly crystal clear.
Right.
And it doesn't have to travel in a mathematically straight line to be considered fluid. It just needs that continuous forward momentum. And that, I think, shatters the first massive misconception, which is this. Fluency is not perfection.
Fluency is not perfection.
Wow. In fact, perfectionism is the literal enemy of fluency.
Say that again, because I think people need to hear that.
Perfectionism is the enemy of fluency. You are going to make mistakes. You will mess up verb conjugations, you will occasionally use the wrong preposition, and your pronunciation will not always be flawless.
And that is entirely acceptable.
It is completely acceptable.
See, I see this all the time with learners. People are absolutely terrified of the red pen.
The infamous red pen.
Yes. They think if they speak, someone is secretly grading their sentence structure.
Right, standing there with a clipboard.
Exactly. But when you are having coffee with a friend or, I don't know, negotiating a price at a market somewhere, Nobody is grading you.
Nobody cares.
They don't. They just want to connect. They want the exchange of ideas.
Mm.
I mean, even native speakers completely butcher their own grammar in casual, everyday conversation.
Oh, all the time.
We start sentences, we change our minds halfway through, we use slang, we stumble over words.
Exactly. Perfection is an academic illusion. It was created by standardized testing. The school system basically conditions you to believe that every error is a failure.
Which is so toxic.
Extremely. Because what that does is it raises your affective filter.
The effector filter, that's your internal anxiety level, right?
Right. It raises that anxiety so high that the language-producing centers of your brain literally shut down. You freeze.
Wow.
So we have to destroy the perfection myth. But the second misconception we have to destroy is the native speaker standard.
Right, comparing yourself to someone born in the language.
Exactly. Native speakers have been immersed in their language since the womb. They have a deep-rooted cultural tier of linguistic intuition. And here's the secret. You do not need that tier to be a highly effective, powerful, and persuasive communicator in English.
That is so freeing to hear.
It is. Holding yourself to a native speaker benchmark within 6 months is just a recipe for catastrophic psychological burnout.
Okay, wait. If we are completely removing academic perfection and we are throwing out the native speaker standard, what is left?
A very realistic goal.
Right. But if I'm aiming for this 6-month goal, how do I know when I've actually crossed the finish line?
Well, the blueprint gives us a surprisingly concrete, achievable number.
Okay, I love numbers. Give it to me.
To achieve conversational fluency, and by that I mean the ability to speak powerfully and smoothly in normal situations, you only need a working vocabulary of about 3,000 words.
3,000 words.
3,000 words, not 30,000. Not the entire Oxford English Dictionary. Just 3,000 words.
Okay, I have to jump in here. Because my immediate reaction, and probably the reaction of everyone listening, is that 3,000 words sounds dangerously low.
It sounds like nothing, right?
It does. An average adult native speaker knows something like, what, 20,000 to 30,000 words?
Roughly, yeah.
So if I walk into a bank or a hospital equipped with only a 3,000-word engine, aren't I going to completely freeze up? How is that enough to feel genuinely fluent?
It's a very common pushback, but it completely ignores how language is actually utilized in daily human life. It all comes down to frequency distribution.
Frequency distribution. Explain that.
So, in linguistics, there is a proven concept that a tiny, tiny fraction of a language's vocabulary makes up the vast majority of spoken communication.
Oh, like the 80-20 rule, but for words.
Exactly. Those 3,000 high-frequency words cover roughly 90 to 95% of everything you'll ever need to say or hear in daily life.
Wait, really? 95%?
Yes. With those core words, you can talk about the weather, you can express complex emotional states, outline business plans, buy tickets, navigate conflicts.
So it's not just about lowering the bar to make people feel good.
Not at all.
It's actually about hyper-focusing your cognitive load on what matters.
Precisely. Defining fluency strictly around everyday conversation deliberately excludes highly specialized low-frequency jargon.
Right.
You do not need the vocabulary to, say, debate macroeconomic policy or dissect advanced astrophysics.
Or draft a complex corporate merger in English.
Exactly. If you try to learn every specialized word up front, you overwhelm your brain's working memory.
You just crash the system.
You paralyze your ability to speak because you literally have too many files open in your mental computer. But by mastering just 3,000 words, and I mean mastering them so deeply that they flow out of you like water, you gain immense communicative power without the paralyzing overwhelm.
I love that analogy. We are building a highly efficient, reliable engine for a smooth daily commute.
Right.
We aren't trying to build a rocket ship. We just need the car to start every time we turn the key and get us to the grocery store safely.
Exactly.
So if fluency is having those 3,000 core words flowing effortlessly, the next logical question is the timeline.
The 6 months.
Right. How do we realistically conquer that 3,000-word milestone in 6 months? And to figure that out, we have to completely abandon how we measure time.
The traditional timeline model is an absolute myth. The idea of measuring language progress in calendar months or years is, frankly, absurd.
It really is, isn't it? Think about how many times you've heard someone say, well, I studied English for 5 years in high school.
Right. Everyone says that.
But what does 5 years actually mean? If learner A studies English for 1 highly focused hour a week and learner B studies English for 10 hours a day, well, at the end of a 6-month calendar period, they're going to have Wildly fundamentally different brains.
Completely different neurobiology.
Right. So the calendar is a liar. We have to stop measuring progress in months and start measuring in sheer hours of exposure.
Hours are the only metric that matters because they represent the actual volume of neuroplasticity taking place.
Your brain doesn't care what month it is.
Exactly. Your brain doesn't look at a calendar. It cares how many times a specific neural pathway has been fired.
Okay, so what is the actual hour count then?
The baseline required to reach that fluid conversational state of 3,000 words is roughly 700 hours of quality study.
700 hours.
700 hours.
Now, before you panic and assume you have to quit your job to do this, there's a massive silver lining here.
Oh, a huge one.
Right. Because you are almost certainly not starting at hour zero. You likely have hundreds of hours already banked in your brain from your old school days.
Even if you hated those days.
Exactly. Even if those hours were agonizingly boring, even if you hated the teacher, your brain still captured some baseline data. You know the alphabet, you recognize basic greetings, you probably have a latent understanding of the rhythm of the language.
Yes, the brain is remarkably efficient at storing foundational knowledge, even if it feels totally inaccessible to your conscious mind right now.
It's buried in there somewhere.
Right. Those past struggles weren't a complete waste. They laid the concrete foundation. Because of that residual memory, you might only need 500 new hours to cross the fluency threshold.
Okay, let's unpack the math on this, though, because we have to be brutally honest about the reality of a 6-month deadline.
Let's do the math.
If you need 700 hours and you want to do it in 6 months, that comes out to about 116 hours a month.
Right.
That is almost 4 hours a day.
It sounds like a lot.
I mean, I have to stop you there because that sounds like a guaranteed recipe for a nervous breakdown. How does a normal adult with a full-time job, a family, and, a life sustain 4 hours of language study every single day without completely burning out?
Well, you're assuming that an hour of study looks like the hours you spent in school.
Right.
When you hear 4 hours a day, your brain immediately pictures sitting rigidly at a wooden desk, isolated in a quiet room, staring at a dense grammar textbook.
And trying to memorize lists of irregular verbs while fighting heavy eyelids.
Exactly. If that is what you are doing, then yes, 4 hours a day will destroy your mental health within a week.
I wouldn't last 2 days.
Nobody would. But we have to fundamentally differentiate between a passive, agonizing school hour and a highly dynamic, focused hour. This is the absolute core of the methodology. The equation is quantity plus quality.
Quantity plus quality.
Right. You can rack up 700 hours, but if the quality is 0, the result is 0.
Well, wait, 700 hours of bad quality isn't just 0 result, it's actually negative progress, right?
How so?
Because you're reinforcing the bad habit of translating in your head.
Oh, absolutely. You are strengthening the wrong neural pathways.
Which brings us perfectly to the core of the issue, the quality equation. To survive those hours, the time you spend must be ruthlessly effective. We have to kill the school mindset because the illusion of school hours is the biggest trap in language learning.
It really is.
You could easily spend 1,000 hours in a traditional classroom over 4 years. But because of the crushing boredom, the stress of impending exams, and the sheer terror of speaking in front of 30 judgmental peers, your brain's effective filter goes way up.
The stress response.
Right. The hippocampus, which is the memory center of the brain, literally closes its doors. Out of those 1,000 classroom hours, you might only accumulate 100 real hours of actual cognitive retention.
It is a tragic inefficiency.
Tragic.
When the brain is bored or when it is operating under a threat response, like fear of a bad grade or looking stupid, it refuses to build new long-term neural pathways for something as complex as a new language.
It's busy surviving.
Exactly. Therefore, to ensure your 700 hours actually move the needle, you have to strictly adhere to 2 pillars of quality.
Okay, what are the pillars?
Pillar 1 is power and focus. You must be fully alert. You must be awake and engaged. Having an English podcast playing softly in the background while you fall asleep, or while your mind is entirely focused on a stressful work email, does not count toward your 700 hours.
So sleep learning doesn't work.
Sadly, no. The brain must be actively attempting to decode the information.
Okay, so that's pillar 1. What's pillar 2?
Pillar 2 is what's known as understandable input. And this is a massive trap I see incredibly motivated people fall into all the time.
Oh, the immersion trap.
Yes, they decide they are going to immerse themselves. So they log on to a streaming service, put on a highly complex, fast-paced native movie.
Like a gritty crime drama with lots of slang.
Right, they turn the subtitles off, and they just sit there letting the dialogue wash over them, hoping they will magically absorb the language through osmosis.
But if you don't understand what they are saying, it's just pure noise. It's acoustic garbage to your brain.
It violates the core mechanism of how adult neuroplasticity works.
Exactly. Think about it like walking into a gym on your very first day. You want to get strong, so you walk straight over the bench press, load up 300 pounds, and try to lift it.
You're not going to lift it.
No, you don't get stronger by doing that.
Yeah.
Your muscles don't grow. You just get crushed under the weight. You injure yourself, and you never go back to the gym.
That analogy perfectly mirrors cognitive load theory.
Right. You have to lift a weight that is heavy enough to challenge you, but light enough that you can actually move the bar.
Exactly. The brain can only map, decode, and retain language if the input is slightly above your current level of comprehension, but fundamentally understandable through context.
Understandable through context. So you can guess what's happening.
Yes. It needs enough known words in the sentence to guess the meaning of the unknown word. If a sentence is 90% incomprehensible noise, the brain literally filters it out.
It just dumps it.
It categorizes the audio as irrelevant background sound, no different than the hum of a refrigerator. You have to provide your brain with a ladder, not a sheer vertical cliff face.
A ladder, not a cliff face. I love that. So being awake and ensuring the material is actually understandable, that is the absolute baseline for a high-quality hour.
That's just the baseline.
Right. But if we want to hit that 6-month target, baseline quality isn't going to be fast enough. We have to essentially hack the brain's operating system.
We have to supercharge it.
We have to force it to memorize those 3,000 words at an accelerated rate. And the secret weapon to do that is emotion.
Emotion. This is the exact point where this methodology leaves traditional education in the dust.
Totally.
To understand why emotion is so critical, we have to look at the physiology of memory. Your brain is an incredibly ruthless sorting machine.
Ruthless.
Every single second of every single day, it is bombarded with millions of data points, and it has to decide what to keep and what to immediately throw away to save energy.
Right. It doesn't want to remember what color shirt the barista was wearing 3 days ago.
Yeah.
It dumps that data.
Exactly. But how does it know what to keep? It relies on chemical markers.
Chemical markers.
Age hormones.
Right. Strong emotions, whether it's intense passion, roaring laughter, excitement, or even fear, they act like bright neon highlighters in your neurology.
Neon highlighters, okay.
When you experience a strong emotion, your body releases a cocktail of neurotransmitters, adrenaline, dopamine, endorphins.
All the good stuff.
Exactly. This chemical flood signals to the amygdala and the hippocampus that whatever is happening right now is highly vital for your survival or your well-being. It creates a sticky, permanent memory.
Wow.
But traditional emotionless textbook reading, it produces 0 chemical markers. It is completely flat. Therefore, the brain instantly discards the vocabulary.
Because it thinks, oh, this isn't important for survival. Dump it.
Exactly.
Energy and emotion are deeply biologically linked. And to make this concrete, there is a legendary example of this dynamic in action.
Oh, I know which one you're going to use. It's the tale of 2 methods, centered entirely around learning one single English verb, the word cuddle.
Cuddle.
Now, to cuddle means to hug affectionately, to hold someone close to your body, usually in a loving, romantic, or comforting way.
Right. It's a word with inherent warmth and physical proximity.
Right. So let's look at the old way of learning this word. You are sitting at a desk. You open a massive, heavy dictionary. You scroll down the page. You find cuddle. You take out a pen. You write the definition on a piece of paper.
Snooze.
Right. You stare at it, and you repeat it in your head in a completely flat, monotonous voice. Cuddle to hug. Cuddle to hug.
So boring.
Your physical energy is at 0. Your heart rate is resting. You are completely bored. You close the book. 10 minutes later, that word is gone. It evaporated.
Completely discarded by the brain.
Yes. Now let's look at the exact same word using the emotional method.
The physiological hack.
Yes. Imagine, right now, wherever you are listening to this, picture the most incredibly attractive, captivating person you can possibly think of. A famous movie star, a musician, whoever it is. Vividly imagine them walking into the room you are in right now. They walk right up to you. They look deeply into your eyes. They lean in incredibly close, and they whisper directly into your ear, "Let's cuddle."
Okay. Wow.
Imagine feeling the physical sensation of them being that close. Notice what happens to your body. Your heart rate actually spikes. You might feel butterflies in your stomach. You might even blush or smile. Boom.
The chemical floodgate just opened.
Yes. You will never forget what the word cuddle means for the rest of your life.
The difference is profound. You haven't just memorized a definition, you have manually triggered a biological response.
It's hacking the system.
You have tricked your nervous system into caring about the vocabulary by tethering it to a primal emotional reaction.
Okay, but let's be practical. Obviously, we cannot have movie stars walking into our living rooms every time we need to learn a new verb.
No, that would be distracting.
Very distracting.
Yeah.
So give some tips to integrate emotions into daily study. How does someone actually manufacture this level of emotional intensity in their daily study if they are grinding out their 700 hours at home? What are the specific, actionable ways to integrate emotion into the process?
It's actually easier than it sounds once you abandon the textbook. There are 3 highly actionable ways to generate this environment on demand.
Okay, hit me.
Tip number 1. Abandon lists and embrace stories.
Stories.
Human beings are fundamentally neurologically wired for narrative. Before we had written language, we survived by passing down information through stories around a fire.
Right, our ancestors.
Exactly. Stories naturally contain elements of surprise, absurdity, conflict, and humor. When you learn new vocabulary within the context of a bizarre or funny story, the emotional arc of the narrative acts as the anchor for the words. You aren't remembering a list, you're remembering the punchline.
I love that. You remember the punchline, not the vocabulary word itself, but the word comes along for the ride. Okay, tip number 2 is incredibly crucial. Engage physical movement. Do not sit still.
Never sit still.
If you are sitting rigidly in a chair for 2 hours, your physical energy dies and your emotional energy flatlines right along with it. Stand up. Pace around your room while you are listening to your English audio.
Yes, move.
Use exaggerated hand gestures when you practice speaking. Smile. Even if you're alone in your room and you feel completely ridiculous, the physical muscular act of smiling sends a biofeedback loop to your brain, triggering the release of positive neurotransmitters.
It tricks your brain into thinking you're having fun.
Exactly. Physical movement pumps oxygenated blood to the brain, which increases alertness and retention.
The science on this is extremely clear. Physical movement releases brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, which essentially acts as fertilizer for new neural connections.
Brain fertilizer.
Exactly. And that brings us to tip number 3, which builds directly on your cuddle example. Create vivid mental scenarios. When you encounter a new word, refuse to just translate it into your native language. Close your eyes and actively visualize the most extreme, absurd, exaggerated scenario involving that word.
So make it ridiculous.
Highly ridiculous. If you are learning the word enormous, don't picture a slightly large dog. Picture a dog the size of a skyscraper crushing a city bus.
Godzilla dog.
Yes. The brain retains the extraordinary and discards the mundane.
You essentially have to become a wild movie director in your own mind. Make the new vocabulary word the star of an action movie or a comedy.
Exactly.
But here is the reality check. Generating that kind of high-octane emotional intensity and maintaining that physical energy day after day for 700 hours, that requires a total shift in your identity.
A completely new identity.
You can no longer look in the mirror and call yourself an English student, because what does a student do?
A student sits passively.
Right. A student waits for the teacher to speak. A student hopes they pass a test. You have to kill the student identity and become an athlete in training. We have to adopt the jiu-jitsu blueprint.
The martial arts analogy is the perfect framework for this because it highlights the exact difference between merely studying something and actually embodying it.
Right, making it part of you.
If we look at Brazilian jiu-jitsu, you see a massive dividing line between 2 types of practitioners, the hobbyist and the champion.
Let's break down the hobbyist first. This is the average learner.
Yes.
They treat language learning like a casual interest, like going to a yoga class on the weekends. They might train 2 or 3 times a week. When the instructor shows them a new chokehold or a new technique, they practice it maybe 10 or 20 times.
And then they get bored.
Right. And then they say, okay, I mentally understand the mechanics of this move. What's next? Show me the next shiny new thing.
They want the illusion of progress.
Yes. Their motivation wildly fluctuates based on whether they had a good day at work or not, and what is the result. They stay at a beginner level for years.
Contrast that approach with a true champion. Look at someone like Andre Galvao, a world-renowned jiu-jitsu champion.
A legend.
A champion's schedule is entirely different. They aren't training twice a week. They are on the mat twice a day.
Wow.
That's 14 sessions a week. And more importantly, when a champion learns a new technique, they do not practice it 20 times and move on.
No.
No. They practice that single specific movement 1,000 times, 5,000 times.
That sounds insane.
They drill it until they are sick of it, and then they drill it some more. And they bring 100% focus and fierce emotional intensity to every single one of those repetitions.
Okay, hold on. Let's look at the reality of that, because I feel like we are hitting a massive contradiction here. Yeah, think about it. At the very beginning of this deep dive, we spent 10 minutes talking about how fluency is not perfection.
Right.
We said, you don't need to be perfect, you will make mistakes, and that's fine.
Right.
But now, we are saying you need to act like a world champion and do 1,000 repetitions of the exact same thing.
Right.
Why on earth would I do 1,000 repetitions if I don't care about having perfect grammar? Aren't those two ideas completely at war with each other?
It sounds like a paradox, I grant you that, but it is actually the secret to the entire system.
Explain that to me.
The champion isn't doing 1,000 repetitions to achieve flawless academic perfection for a panel of judges. They are doing massive repetition to build fluidity.
Fluidity, back to the river.
Yes. They are building deep muscle memory, or in the case of language, neurological myelination.
Myelination, meaning the neural pathways get faster.
Exactly. When a fighter is in the middle of a chaotic, high-stress match, they do not have time to consciously think, okay, where do I put my left hand? How do I shift my hips?
Because if they stop to think, they get punched in the face.
Exactly. If they think, they lose. Their body has to react instantly, automatically.
Oh, that entirely changes the perspective.
Yes. In language, conversations are chaotic and unpredictable. You don't have time to consciously reference a grammar table in your mind before you respond to a question.
Right, you can't be flipping through mental flashcards while the barista is waiting for your order.
No. You do massive repetition, listening to and repeating core phrases hundreds of times, not to pass a written exam, but so that the words flow out of your mouth without conscious thought.
You are aggressively eliminating the internal translation machine.
Exactly. Champions drill the basics until the basics are completely effortless, which frees up their conscious mind to focus on the strategy of the conversation.
That makes so much sense. The repetition isn't about being perfectly accurate. It's about removing the hesitation. It's about speed of access.
Fluidity over perfection.
But let's be real. If you commit to this, if you decide today to train like a champion, to hit 700 hours, to bounce around your living room, manufacturing high emotion and doing massive repetition, you are going to hit a wall.
It's inevitable.
You are going to enter what I call the messy middle. Sometime around hour 300, the initial excitement is going to fade, and you are going to encounter massive resistance.
It is the most dangerous phase of the 6-month journey. The plateau is where dreams of fluency go to die.
Yeah.
And the resistance you face will come from two distinct directions, from the outside world and from inside your own mind.
Let's look at the external resistance first. The inevitable critics.
Oh, they are always there.
The crab-in-a-bucket mentality. It's a dark side of human nature, but anytime you draw a line in the sand and declare that you are going to achieve something extraordinary, like mastering a language in 6 months, or launching a business, or transforming your body, people around you will get uncomfortable.
Because your ambition highlights their complacency.
Exactly. You will suddenly be surrounded by negative people telling you it cannot be done.
They will say things like, 6 months is impossible. I took English for 10 years and I still can't speak it. You are wasting your time.
Or they will mock your methods. Why are you listening to children's stories and pacing around your room? You look ridiculous.
They actively try to drag your energy down to their level to protect their own ego.
So what is the champion's defense mechanism against this? How do you protect your 700 hours from energy vampires?
It is incredibly simple, but very hard to do. Champions completely ignore them.
They just block it out.
They don't try to debate them. They don't try to prove them wrong with science or logic. They just tune out the noise and get back on the mat.
And this requires a fundamental shift in who you allow to influence you. We have to talk about the paradigm shift from teacher to coach.
This is a crucial distinction. In the traditional school system, a teacher is fundamentally an authority figure focused on correction.
The red pen again.
Yes. They are the person wielding the red pen. Their job is to find your errors, highlight your weaknesses, grade your tests, and tell you what you did wrong.
Right.
The teacher dynamic is inherently negative because it is based on deficit modeling, focusing entirely on what you lack.
But a coach operates in a completely different universe.
Entirely different.
Think of a boxing coach in the corner of the ring. A coach isn't there to give you a letter grade on your jab. A coach exists to destroy your doubt.
Destroy doubt, build power.
Yes. A coach builds your physical and mental power, increases your confidence, and pushes you to keep fighting when you are exhausted. A coach focuses on your potential, not your past mistakes. They care about your energy and your execution.
Exactly. But here is the ultimate challenge. You are not going to be in a classroom anymore. You are doing this on your own.
Right.
Which means you cannot rely on an external coach to motivate you every single day.
And this brings us to the most terrifying part of the messy middle. Because sometimes the most venomous, negative person in the room isn't your jealous coworker or a bad high school teacher.
No, it's closer than that.
It's your own internal voice. It's that insidious little whisper in your head when you stumble over a sentence saying, "You sounded so stupid just now. You are too old to learn this. You're never going to get it."
Imposter syndrome hits hard.
Oh, so hard. How do we survive that critic?
The internal critic is far more destructive than any external hater because you can't just walk away from it.
It's in your head.
Right. So to survive the plateau, you must actively, consciously become your own coach. You have to fire the teacher that lives in your head, the one constantly grading your grammar, and hire an internal coach.
Fire the teacher, hire the coach. I love that.
When that negative voice speaks up, you must combat it with aggressive empowerment. You have to actively celebrate your small wins.
What does that look like practically?
If you understood 60% of a podcast today instead of 50% yesterday, the internal coach celebrates that as a massive victory.
It's about building psychological resilience.
Yeah.
You have to truly believe in your own raw power to learn. The mind is a muscle, and if you treat it like a fragile crystal glass, it will shatter.
Right.
But if you treat it like a muscle and you coach it through the fatigue, it grows stronger. You have to trust the process of the 700 hours, even when it feels messy.
The messy middle is just evidence that the neuroplasticity is happening.
Yeah.
It means the brain is remodeling itself. The internal coach recognizes that discomfort is just weakness leaving the brain.
Discomfort is just weakness leaving the brain.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. Okay, let's take a step back and look at the massive landscape we've just covered today.
We covered a lot of ground.
We really did. We started by completely destroying the academic myth of fluency. Fluency is not about being a perfect, flawless native speaker. It is simply mastering a core engine of about 3,000 everyday words and getting them to flow smoothly from your mouth.
Moving like water over the rocks of conversation.
Yes, and we learned that measuring progress in calendar months is a lie. True fluid mastery requires roughly 700 hours of intense, high-quality exposure.
And you achieve that quality by making sure you aren't trying to bench press 300 pounds on day one.
Right. You use understandable, comprehensible input. You stay hyper-alert. And most importantly, you hack your brain's memory systems with high emotional and physical energy.
You ditch the dictionary.
You ditch the dictionary, you use vivid stories, you pace the room, and you direct crazy, exaggerated movies in your mind to make the vocabulary stick permanently.
And finally, we saw that to survive the 700 hours, you must permanently abandon the identity of a passive student.
You have to become an athlete.
You must train with the relentless, massive repetition of a jiu-jitsu champion to build deep linguistic muscle memory, while fiercely defending your mind from external haters and your own internal doubts.
By becoming your own most aggressive coach.
Exactly.
It is a complete revolution in how we approach the human brain.
It truly is. And I want to leave you with a broader application to chew on long after this deep dive ends.
Ooh, leave us with something good.
If this high-energy, emotionally charged method can completely unlock a whole new language and fundamentally rewire your neural pathways in just 6 months, ask yourself, what else are you capable of?
Oh, wow.
What other impossible skills in your life, whether it's coding, public speaking, playing an instrument, are currently trapped behind the boring, low-energy dictionary method of learning?
Right.
What could you conquer next if you stopped acting like a passive student waiting for a grade and started training like a champion?
Wow. That is the question, isn't it? The ceiling on our potential is so much higher than we ever realize. Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey today. Remember to keep your energy high, keep moving, keep the words flowing, and keep the confidence growing. We will see you next time on the Coffluent podcast. And remember, water doesn't stop to analyze its path, it just flows.